My name is Marike, Marike Kulper, and I am here representing Trend Micro and our Internet Safety for Kids and Families program. All right, so I have been working for Trend Micro for the last 2 years, and our program that I'm representing here has actually been around for 16 years. Trend Micro is one of the largest cybersecurity tech companies. We're active all over the world, and we've reached over 4 million kids and parents just like you. And now I want to get to know you a little bit better. So tell me, how old is your oldest child? We're going to have somebody launch a poll, and we'll see what the results are in a moment. How old is your oldest child? Okay, you should be able to see that poll now. Folks are filling it in. We seem to have quite a few people whose kiddos, their oldest child is 6 to 10 years, some 9 to 14 years old. A few who have 5 years old or younger, so some of you have the younger kiddos. And we've got some folks with teens, so 15 and older in the crowd, but by far our oldest kiddo is somewhere between 6 to 10 years old. So I think a lot of this information is going to be very timely for you that we'll be talking about this evening, and as well for those teens. So for tonight's topics, we are going to be looking at screen time, security and privacy, and we're also going to be looking at scams. And when we talk about security and privacy, we're definitely going to be talking about how to set our kids up for success. We want to make sure that we are setting them up to be secure and to keep their identity private. When it comes to scams, we're also going to be looking at how AI is influencing scams these days. And we're going to kick things off by talking about screen time. This, I know, is a large struggle for many parents out there. Trend Micro has been in business for 35 years, and I can tell you that one of our number one pieces of advice to parents everywhere is the importance of the relationship that you have with your child. That is really the number one thing that we really want to emphasize and tell you all. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it's conversation with your child, it's listening to your child, building trust with them, being there for them, and of course, setting boundaries for them to keep them safe and healthy. That's really the most important thing. It may be nearly impossible for us to prevent children from ever coming across something online that might upset them or hurt them, or that they could find hurtful, kind of like how they'll inevitably fall over in the playground. But what parents can do is help their children build resilience by creating supportive relationships. And coming in second place here is tech tools. Tech tools are things such as the security software that could protect your kids from scams, viruses, malware, etc. And of course, tech tools that we'll talk about in a moment that could support you and complement you as a parent or as a guardian in managing and monitoring your child's time and activities online. However, there is no tech tool that's really ever going to replace you and your relationship and your role as a parent. So let's dive into screen time. It's a concern for a lot of parents, but we have to consider that maybe not all screen time is equal. There is perhaps the need for us to shift our perspective and to consider the difference between just time in front of a screen versus quality time in front of screen. So let's consider 3 scenarios here. The first one is we have little Jason. He's watching a superhero video with his older sister, and he only watches it for 3 minutes, but he sees a dramatic fight scene during that time. And then we've got Aisha. Her best friend moved to a different state, but she regularly is spending 20 minutes video chatting with her friend. So they talk about school and friends, and they send each other emojis. And then lastly, we've got Laura and her aunt and her. They're watching the movie Sing, and they watch the movie for more than an hour. And they're singing along to the music. She's actively talking about the characters for days afterwards, commenting that, you know, the one that had stage fright, she had to keep trying to be brave. So you can see that with these 3 different scenarios, the first one had the shortest amount of screen time of all 3, but perhaps The last two, and I would argue the last one, was by far having the most quality as part of it. Lara was co-viewing with a family member. She was engaging with the content and she was discussing it for days afterwards. So there tends to be 4 strategies that we as parents can use to control screen time. And the first is really to restrict access. Many parents are employing the strategy to deny or restrict access to certain screen-related activities, especially if they're not required for school. That can include limiting access to devices like phones, tablets, gaming consoles, limiting access to Wi-Fi, deleting certain apps. And that has varying degrees of success, but it can reduce time on screens overall. However, it does make screen time a battleground, often at the expense of family relationships. And the second that we have here is monitoring. And other parents would, allow access to screen media, but under supervision. So this takes various forms. It could include requiring kids to use screen media only sort of in visible places within the home, like public spaces within the home. Setting up password-controlled accounts for kiddos using password-controlled accounts for kids using parents' contact information, and then using parental control apps or settings. We're going to show you some of those in a moment. Those kinds of measures are really great at kind of calming our own worries about what our kids are being exposed to, their safety online. And it gives some sense of control about our kids' use of screens, but it does require a lot of energy on your part to go and look at the reports, kind of monitor the apps, go through it. And it doesn't always mean we're going to be successful, because children have a knack, believe it or not, of working around those parental controls. So it may create a little bit of a false sense of security. And for the next few slides, I'm going to show you some useful apps and their settings to help you as parents by limiting screen time or the type of content they're exposed to. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly, but just know you can find all of this information online with a quick Google search for any of these apps. So the first one is, let's say you've got your Apple device. We're looking at the screen time feature within iOS. And here you can see that you can go to settings, you can go into screen time, and under the family, you can see any member that's part of your family. Even kids under 13 can be set up for this. And you can click on a user, and then you'll be able to see their screen time and also set restrictions on the type of content. Go into content and privacy restrictions. You'll be able to set restrictions on the content and the time spent on different types of apps like games. Both Apple and Android families have something that can help you. Google Family Link, it's available as an app, but you can also use it as web-based. It can limit screen time. It can protect privacy and security on different apps accessed through the Play Store or the Chrome browser. It can track a child's location, and it can also send you alerts when they're on the move. And YouTube has launched a feature called Supervised Account, where you can now filter the stuff that your kids see on YouTube based on different levels of appropriateness. So we have Explore, Explore More, and then Most of YouTube. So it's meant to target different age ranges. And I would encourage you to look up those different categories and find out what's most appropriate for the kiddo that you've got at home based on their age. So it gives you this new supervised experience. And then, of course, we have TikTok. TikTok also has family pairing, and this basically allows you to limit content and time spent on the app. You need to have TikTok on both of you and your child's devices. And you can set this up on your own phone, however, if your child uses just your device to access the app. And once you set it up, you can limit time and content from your own phone while your child uses TikTok on theirs. So you would go to the Safety Center and select Digital Wellbeing. And then you'd click on the Family Pairing. And you can assign each phone as parent or teen, and then set limits on contact, content, time on the app, etc. So those are some of the options that TikTok does offer. And we have Instagram. Instagram has got a feature called supervision, where you can limit their time on it, including setting a quiet mode. So especially for those teens who maybe are having their phone in their room at night, there's this quiet mode that you can turn on. You can see who they follow, who follows them. And again, all of these tools that I've mentioned here, they're there for you to help you with that monitoring or maybe that restricting access piece. But also they can facilitate lots of conversations with your kids, meaning, hey, maybe this isn't a great person to follow because they do some questionable things. So let's always remember we've got that relationship piece that we can rely on, not just the tech tools themselves. So now we come back to those 4 strategies. We kind of talked about restricting access, we talked about monitoring, and now we're going to talk about creating rules. And some families like to set up verbal or written rules with kiddos about who, how, when, and why. Different devices could be used. Some families might even agree on like a 1-for-1 rule, so an hour of non-screen activity for every hour on screen. Others would allocate certain devices for certain activities at certain times of the day. For example, gaming on a computer only after school and until dinner, and then only TV until the bedtime routine kicks in, for example. And parents often find that if you create a contract with your child and maybe involve them in the process, make it a conversation so everybody's on the same page, it can be really successful in the short term, but there's often that slow creep away from the terms of agreement. And it starts with those small negotiations and sometimes escalates into arguments. And sometimes you're busy and you just don't notice that the boundary has been pushed on the rules that you've created. So you might want to consider resetting with like a screen-free day to kind of reset the contract. And when you set the rules, it's a good idea to think about the following things. You want to consider like what apps are they allowed to use. You want to probably stick to the ones that are heavily reviewed, ask other people if they're allowing their kids to use them. You want to consider when are they allowed to use it. So kids are online for school often, and then they're online for fun after school hours, even like a lot. So it can be important to be clear about when they can use tech for fun and help your kids think about other activities that actually could be more important and healthy for them, and how screen time for fun can fit into their day. You also want to talk about for how long they can be on. So if you do allow screen time for fun on a given day, be clear about the start and end times. And you can, again, use those tech tools to help you, like the ones we talked about. And where can they be while they're using it? So with all of us, we want to consider location in the house. If they're going to be video chatting with a group of friends, consider a spot where you can check in on them. Maybe have them use headphones if you're trying to work or another child is doing homework or somebody's gone to bed. And we want to check with whom they can use their tech. So for younger kids just starting out on social media or gaming or just getting their own device, their own phone for the first time, talk to them about who they can connect with. Have them ask you each time they want to add new people, or at least talk to them about who they're connecting with on social media. You know, are these people that they know in real life, or how do they determine that an account is a real person? And you can help build their contact list with them with those open lines of communication, and let them know that you might check their phone from time to time if you're feeling concerned, and that's okay. You know, you're their parent and you're there to make sure that they're staying safe. Now we've done a little bit of work partnering with and, you know, We've loved to collaborate with the Boston Children's Hospital Digital Wellness Lab over the years. They did a survey of over 1,500 teens aged 13 to 17 across the US in 2023, so last year. And I think you'll all be pleased to know that about 1/3, about 35%, said their parents' rules were strict, but 70% found them reasonable, and 60% actually found them beneficial. So I'm showing you this so that if your child is 7, 9, 11 years old, check out the perspective of these teenagers. They know that their parents are looking out for them and that they have their best interests at heart. And children definitely do need rules and boundaries, and you can change them up as you go along. So now if it's summer holidays, maybe the rules change a little bit, or as they get older, the rules are going to change. So focus on being practical and realistic with them, and hopefully then they'll consider the rules to be reasonable. And of course, we know that having that relationship at the core of everything, as I mentioned earlier, is really central to all of this working with your kids. And last but not least, there is the fourth strategy, and that is really to teach some self-regulation and digital literacy. This involves children learning strategies to moderate how and how much they use screens, and learning skills like spotting scams and thinking critically about what they're exposed to. This is definitely a long game, and it's going to require patience and trust on the part of parents. So let's dig into that just a little bit more. So teaching self-regulation and digital literacy, one of the things you can definitely invest some time into is watching and playing together with your kiddos when you can. You're not going to be able to stop what you're doing every time your kid jumps on Roblox, but make an effort to understand and even appreciate what they're doing online. Ask questions, get them to explain stuff to you, listen with an open mind. And as you do that, talk about the content that you come across that might be questionable, and maybe a potential scam in an online game chat or an ad you see on YouTube. It's a great moment if you're viewing things with them to also teach. And the other thing you can do is let kids see how you navigate the digital world. So talk about how you actually spot scams. How do you verify information? How do you compare different products? How do you determine if a link is safe to click on, or if a website is real or fraudulent, or if a text message is a scam? How do you research topics online? How do you react to nasty comments that you come across online? How do you make decisions about what to post on your social media account to protect your identity and privacy? These are all things that you can be modeling and showing kids and talking through with them. Pull them aside and share with them how you're making those decisions. They will learn a lot of skills from you. And of course, being a role model means leading by example. So putting your devices away during family time, muting your notifications during meals, turning off the television when no one's watching it, modeling how you balance activities throughout the week. They're going to be keeping a really close eye on you. You know, are you able to kind of stay active, spend time with family and friends, and be on your tech? How do you negotiate all of that? And I think a lot of adults struggle with this. And so you can imagine how much harder it is for kids to figure it out. So we want to talk about our personal strategies for managing our own screen time and our sleep hygiene in a world of screens. Another thing you can do is be a family of media critics. So really help your kids think critically about what they watch, what they're gaming, how they're playing online, and what they're interacting with by talking about it. Encourage them to think more deeply about shows and games that they enjoy. You can ask questions like, who made this? Why do you like this character? Does this remind you of anything? If you've got older kids, you know, help them to check out online reviews together with you, and help them to look for shows and games and apps that allow them to explore their interests, get creative, or connect with other people. And you want to teach them to come to you. If they come across something that they don't understand, that makes them feel bad, that they don't like, help them to connect how they feel and behave with the type and duration of technology they just used. The other thing we can do is treat tech as a tool, not just as a treat. So kids who use tablets and smartphones just to play games or watch shows only see the entertainment side of technology, but you can kind of bring them under your wing and show them how you use devices for other things, such as sending emails, getting directions, or looking up information. And we want to, with that self-regulation piece, help them to pre-plan their tech use and set limits. So this one's tough, but in discussion with you, have your kiddo try to create a plan for, okay, so how long will you be using the tech? And what do you intend to do when that time has expired? Have them set up the timer and remind them then that it's time to change activities, for example. So you're helping them to self-regulate their own tech use and their screen time. So no matter which approach you use, it's not going to be a perfect one. And it's likely you're going to find a combination of these strategies to be the most effective. Screens are all around us, so this is going to be an ongoing and constantly changing conversation. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight into some of the different things that you can do to help manage screen time with your family. And how do you know when it's becoming a problem versus everything's normal and there's no need to worry? I think some key questions that we should ask ourselves is, are children eating and sleeping enough? Are they getting a full night's sleep? That's very, very important. Sleep is really, really important. Are they physically healthy? Are they connecting socially with friends and family through tech or otherwise? Are they engaged in school? Are they enjoying and pursuing hobbies and interests, again, through tech or beyond? And if the answer to these questions is more or less yes, then perhaps the problem of screen time is a little bit less dramatic than we might be led to believe. So now we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about security and privacy. And I'd like you to give me a reaction, if you can, or a thumbs up or a mention in the chat if you agree with this statement. My child's accounts have unique, strong passwords, and two-factor authentication has been turned on. So give me an indication in the chat if this is something that, yes, you have done. You for sure take care of this. And again, two-factor authentication is really all about making sure we've got a second factor, like a code going to a cell phone or to an email account that verifies their identity when they're logging in. So let's see in the chat if we've got, yes, we've got some thumbs ups, a couple thumbs down, unfortunately. We've got some yeses, one that's kind of maybe, and a nope. Remember, we really want to have strong, unique passwords for their accounts because we want to protect them from anybody who might be trying to get into those accounts. And again, if somebody figures out one of your passwords and all of your accounts have the same password, you're basically giving them a key to open the door to everything. So make sure you've got unique, meaning different passwords for each account. So something to consider. Okay, another one for you guys in the chat. The default settings for social media, for gaming, when you get your browser, for your, surfing the internet, it's designed to protect your personal information. Would you say that that is true or false? True or false? What do you guys think? The default settings. Lots of falses. Absolutely, yes. I 100% agree. The answer here is that it is false. They are not always set to the best level for you and your kids. So you need to kind of get your kids involved in helping them to understand where these settings are and have you talk them through with you so that they learn which ones to toggle. This is something even adults are not very good at. We often ignore the settings for apps, the privacy settings that are built in, and yet they're so important. So we have to somehow teach our kids this little bit of digital literacy about which settings they should toggle on or off. Okay, so have you reviewed the privacy settings of your child's devices, meaning their phone or their iPad or the apps that they use? Have you actually gone through and reviewed all those settings? It can take a few minutes, you can do it a few at a time. Not all I see in the chat, some thumbs up, some yes, some very honest no's, which is okay. Part of this presentation tonight is to get you thinking about this and deciding like, yeah, I could spend 10 minutes just going through and toggling on some privacy settings to make sure that my child's privacy and identity is well protected. Okay, let's see. What about the internet browser? So if your kid's got access to Safari or Edge or Chrome, have you actually gone and checked the privacy settings for the internet browser? I've got some saying here, nope, that's not something we've done. A couple yeses. Okay. So remember, when your internet browser, there's settings you can find there. It's going to be controlling the browser history. It's going to be controlling sometimes access to camera, sometimes access to location. It might be selling some of the information it collects about your browsing activity to data brokers, to advertisers. And so one of the ways that you can really tighten up security is by looking at the settings within your browser and toggling some of those settings. So privacy settings really are quite important for us to review because it's controlling access to the device that your child is using. And that means access to their camera, their contact list, their microphone. A lot of apps want to know exact locations for things. I, for example, use WhatsApp, and I think a couple years ago I realized WhatsApp actually tracks my exact geographic location unless I toggle that setting off. And I thought to myself, why on earth does this app need to know my exact location? So you can make that choice and you can toggle those settings off. Again, when it comes to the browsers, as I mentioned before, it has to do with browser history. So you can toggle that, how much the sort of advertising cookies are saved or collected by websites. So you can control what data websites can access. And then when it comes to social media, we also want to think about, are our kids' profiles public or private? And who's allowed to message them or tag them in photos or connect with them? And how is information being shared through social media? So what this means is that a lot of times we've got information sharing with third-party apps. It could look like a game or auto-posting programs. And while some of these apps might add value to your user experience, it's important to know that the information that is shared on these sites could be compromised outside of the social media company's own privacy requirements. So that means if you allow an app access to your social media profile, they can gain access to some private information that the social network itself might not normally share outside of itself. So make sure you only authorize trusted apps and websites for that information sharing piece when you're looking through your settings. I love seeing in the chat that some folks here are saying they always play around in their settings. And one thing I would encourage you is, yes, please review it frequently because you would be surprised how often it goes back to a default setting after an update. So make sure that if you keep your apps updated, which is very important to do so that there aren't security breaches, known security breaches in your apps, that you go back into those settings quickly and just double check nothing's been toggled in a way you wouldn't want it to be. So as I've been mentioning, I really encourage you guys to review privacy settings not only for devices, but also for the apps your kiddos are using. And then don't forget about browsers as well. Just go in there and check it out. Review it, make sure you're good with it. And again, pull your kid into that conversation depending on their age, because they will learn by going through it with you. And overall, when we look at securing our kiddos' accounts, this is just a little overview, but we want to make sure they've got really strong, unique passwords for their accounts. You've turned on that multi-factor or two-factor authentication. So if a scammer, if somebody ever got in, they still need that second way to verify identity before they could get into the account. We want to review privacy settings. Ideally, if your child is old enough to do that together with them. Want to make sure we keep our apps updated. And of course, we would want you to use good security software. So security software is anything from, you get software suites these days that are aimed to protect your identity. You have software suites these days that are aimed at preventing scams, preventing you from landing on fraudulent websites, blocking SMS messages that could be fraudulent. It's also the typical antivirus, anti-malware service. So make sure you're using that security software, because that tech tool is just going to give you that added bit of comfort to stay protected. Okay, another question for you guys. What goes online stays online forever? Do you think this is true or this is false? What goes online stays online forever. I'm seeing a lot of absolutely trues, and you're absolutely right. That is true. The reason I say this is because it's almost impossible to delete information shared online. Folks can take screenshots of posts, certain websites and apps, they automatically save and they archive content. Social media companies will keep your data even if you've deleted it on their servers. So it is actually very hard to get rid of something once it's been posted online. And so what you also want to do is really encourage your kiddos to think before they share anything online. Help them to reflect. And again, if you've got those younger kids, we want to start having them think about this, because they're maybe on the cusp of becoming users of social media within just a couple years. We want them to ask themselves, hey, did this post or opinion really reflect who I am? Would I be sharing something that others might consider inappropriate? Would your future self be okay with this? And you can remind them that, schools, universities, colleges, they often are looking at an applicant's online presence in making those admission decisions. Sometimes what they find is very positive and it reflects well on a student's application. And sometimes what they find is that it has a negative impact on a kiddo's application. So remind them that they are investing today in themselves in the future. And then we also, as parents, we need to consider the type of information we're sharing about our kids online. It's not just what our kids are posting, but we have to be careful about what we share. Police have recognized this and the risks of sharing too much information, and they've responded with posts like the one I'm showing you now. So be aware of, all the fact you're telling the world your child's age, what school they go to, what their interests are, what the name of their teacher maybe is in some of these placards. So be very careful with the things you also share about your child's identity online. Now, does anybody see any personal information in these pictures that I've got on this slide? Because we really want to think about, what are we sharing in our photos? I see somebody said age. Yes. Anything else you spot in these pictures? School name, location, absolutely. Yep. Address, school name. Anybody spot something on this laptop down here in the corner? That one's the tough one to spot. So I'll reveal the answer. Yes, Stephanie has said password info. That is correct. So perhaps without even realizing it, we take these photos, we share them publicly, or we share them with others online, and we don't even realize we could be divulging our date of birth if we're sharing a photo like this on our kiddo's birthday, or they're sharing it on their own birthday. It could be revealing what school they go to, a favorite movie, and it could, inadvertently, if there's something in the background of a photo, reveal a password. If your child is taking photos on your street or in front of your house, you could be revealing your address and where you live, and really sensitive details that maybe you don't want to put out into the world. So think carefully about the types of things that are being shared in those photos. And we want to encourage our kids to ask themselves as well, did everyone in this picture give consent? Because not everybody, we can't just assume everyone's okay with us sharing or posting images online. And we want to, of course, be asking ourselves, are we okay with the information that could be found in this photo? So it's good to have a good critical eye, look at the pictures, make sure that you're not sharing something you wouldn't want people to know about you. And again, one of the risks of you show up in your favorite sports team jersey, or it's obvious what city you live in the background. The risk to that is a lot of us use that kind of information to make our passwords. And so it's actually helping for folks to guess our password more easily, because many people use their pets' names, the city they live in, their favorite movie, their favorite sports team to construct their password. So you might be inadvertently giving out a lot of details. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about is scams. And I want to know, have you seen scams that target kiddos? Anybody seen a scam? I see a few people with yes, some with no. And because our browsers and the data collected on us is so sophisticated, you might not be exposed to a lot of the scams that kids are exposed to, because somehow the metadata understands that you're not a child. So let's take a look at the various forms scams come to our children through. Definitely ads. Kids see ads, and often they might also come across surveys. They might be asked to complete a survey that looks like they're going to win something like an iPad Pro, or they're going to get a reward, or it's going to tell them what animal character they are most like, for example. So make sure that we're telling kids to watch out for these, because actually when they click the link and they're inputting, maybe they're being asked for their username and password, or they're being asked for some personal information about themselves, their address, what school they go to, their favorite color, etc. As they complete those surveys, it's actually a scammer in the background collecting that information, which they could then turn around and use it against the kiddo, or the ad takes them to a fraudulent website, and then they're again being asked to enter payment information or log in to a fake sign-in sheet, etc. And then a scammer's got hold of your financial details, their user account login credentials, etc. Some other scams that we see is really sophisticated social engineering, some bots that show up within chats, and fraudulent links as well that get shared through gaming chats, or even DMs that you get through Instagram, etc. And yeah, somebody in the chat has just said that their mom gets caught up in these kinds of scams as well. And that's absolutely the case for adults. So we are just as liable to get caught up in scams as our kids. And so anytime you're learning how to spot these, and you're, having that discerning eye about how to pick out scam from real, that's a good moment to bring your kids in and help teach them how to spot things for themselves and to think critically and question what they see. So here's an example of a fake login page for Discord, the app Discord. And again, this is an opportunity for a scammer to collect information about our kids, collect their login credentials, collect financial details, etc. So these are very prevalent. And we need to teach them as well to be careful about links. So you want to show them that skill of just hovering over a link so that the link is revealed before they click, and then they can kind of investigate if that link looks like it's going somewhere different than they intended, or if it's going to the right place. And if they're on a cell phone or a tablet, teaching them that they can hold down the link until the dialog box appears, and that would show you the URL, and you can check it out to see if it looks suspicious. However, you can always copy and paste a link into a URL checker. So this is one that Trend Micro offers. It's global.sitesafety.trendmicro.com. And if you copy and paste a link into that site, it'll tell you if we've discovered this as a fraudulent link, or if we think it's a safe site, or perhaps it's unknown to us and you're the first person to report a site to us. Thanks, Kimberly, for putting that into the chat there. And the good news is, you've seen this slide before. That's because protecting ourselves from scammers is very similar to kind of keeping our identity safe. And that is, in case we get fooled, in case we click on a bad link, we want to make sure we've got that two-factor authentication turned on. We want to make sure all our passwords are different. If they break into one account, we don't want them to get into others. We want to make sure those privacy settings have been reviewed so that we're kind of hiding ourselves from being more visible online, where scammers might be interested in getting details from us. And we want to make sure that our apps are updated so those kind of security vulnerabilities aren't going to be present. And we want to use security software to help spot scams. There's lots of security software out there that does more than just antivirus. So it's capable of telling you lots of scams that could potentially be in the landscape by blocking them from reaching you. Another question for you guys is, AI is being used to make scams more sophisticated. What do you think? Yes or no? Quite a few people are saying yes. And I did see a question in the chat just a second ago. Sorry if I haven't caught all the questions, but will we be distributing this PowerPoint? Again, on demand, we will share the recording of this webinar so that you can check it out later. And I see a lot of people saying, yes, AI is being used to make scams more sophisticated. I 100% agree that this is true. So you want to be on the lookout and have your kids also be on the lookout for the fact that AI is able to create likenesses of people, getting them to say and do things they maybe didn't do. One of the key things we would be very concerned about is if your child is talking to a student, they think there's a girl or a boy that they're very interested in. Scammers can create photos, they can create videos, they can alter their voice. And so even if the kid is having video conversations with somebody, it doesn't mean that they are actually speaking to who they think they are speaking to, which is very terrifying. They think they're talking to a classmate at another school who's the same age, maybe in the same state, but who they're actually talking to is 55-year-old scammer sitting in the basement somewhere. And so we really want to make sure that kids are aware that deep fakes exist, that scammers can utilize AI to create fake personas of themselves using video, altering their voice, and creating fake likenesses. So do you think your child could easily tell if someone's online account was real or fake? I'm getting a lot of no's. I've got one yes, a couple yeses, lots of no's though. So we really want to make sure that we're teaching our children to verify and what to look out for. Talk to your kids about what the scammer tactics are and let them know that, they might be trying to trick you to sharing intimate photos of yourself. Because they can turn around and blackmail kids we've seen instances of this even in preteens, young kids in a short of span of time as 30 minutes being online with a stranger. They decide that they trust them enough to share photos of themselves or to go on a video call with this person that they've never met in real life. That's how easily it can happen. And so scammers, we kind of have to lift the veil and tell our kids, hey, they might be trying to trick you into sharing images of yourself. They might be trying to trick you into clicking malicious links that take you to fake websites. They might be trying to gather personal information about you, perhaps try to sell that information on the dark web. And really, they're trying to get money. Often they're trying to get your personal information or more nefarious things. And so we need to remind our kids to only talk to people online that they know in real life, to never share intimate photos with anyone online, to never send money or credit card details, to never give their personal information out. That includes when they fill out those surveys, if they ever fill one out, hopefully they don't. And to not click on links or open files, because as you can see here, it's very easy for folks to, just spam our kids through even just chat, just through SMS and text us randomly. So what should children do if they are scammed? The key here is to cut off communication immediately with the scammer. Don't continue to talk to somebody or engage with somebody who is a scammer, whether that's a phone call they've received, whether it's somebody they're messaging with through an app, whether it's somebody they feel, they know very well, and they're having a hard time believing they're blackmailing them now, for example. Cut off communication with the scammer. And the second thing that your kids need to know is they need to talk to a trusted adult, because we want to rely on the younger kiddos to have an adult help them so that you can immediately go and change passwords. You can notify any financial institutions, maybe to stop a scammer from having access to a financial account, or to stop transactions if there's been perhaps money shared to a scammer. And adults can also help document the scam and report the scam. Very important. And if your kiddos are older, if you've got teens at home, you can also encourage them to talk to a trusted adult, of course, but they can be involved in some of these other steps of updating their passwords for their accounts, of documenting and capturing the evidence of a scam and reporting it. They can absolutely be part of those things. When you report a scam on a platform or an app, you're actually helping the rest of the world stay safe from that particular type of scam. You can often see, report as junk, for example, on text messages. You can block certain folks from emailing you again within your email app. There are switches that you can toggle to report what you believe to be a fraudulent user on social media platforms. So lots of these types of apps and platforms, they have methods for you to report fraudulent behavior. But then if, of course, there's a need to file a police report, don't hesitate. If money has been lost, for example, if a lot of personal information has been lost, you can file a police report. And of course, you can report the scam to the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov. And this is very important because it's helping to paint a nationwide and also a global picture of what's going on in the scam landscape. And the FTC would work with more than 2,800 different law enforcement agencies across the globe. So we're almost nearing the end. I just want to let you guys know that we've got lots of resources here. I'm going to take questions in just a moment, but we've got lots of resources I just want to tell you about. One is we have an online academy for kiddos called Cyber Academy. It covers lots of different topics. It's geared specifically to kids age 7 to 10. And there is a video you can watch with your kiddo. There's a conversation guide for parents or teachers to have with the kids. They can complete a fun little Kahoot quiz, and there's an activity sheet you can download as well. So be sure to check out Cyber Academy if you've got those kids age 7 to 10. And we also have lots of resources on our trendmicro.com/internet safety website. There's PDF resources you can download. There are webinars as well that you can watch on various topics. So please go there and check out some resources. Just want to encourage you to do that. And I'm sure Kimberly's going to be awesome and put those links in the chat for you. And again, we want you to give us your feedback. Here's the link for that. Kimberly will also place that feedback link in the chat. And now I'm going to take some questions, and I've probably missed quite a few. So any questions from folks that I can answer? Let me see what's going on. I think I missed one before, and it was having to do with what if another child is posting a photo of your kid, and what can you do about that? So just know that depending on where you are and what the laws say within your state or within your region, your county, for example, there are protections in place where posting a photo of somebody without permission can be against the law, depending on the location you're in. You can also utilize certain resources that would take down content from the internet for you. So that is definitely something that you can Google and look into. I don't have the link with me this second, but there are services that will help you, often non-for-profits, and they will help you to take down anything that's posted. And you can, of course, contact the platform or the app that it has been posted at. And obviously, speak directly to the person who's done the posting of that photo and see if they'll take it down. But there are services to help you take down photos. And of course, you could take legal action potentially. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything left in the open Q&A. It looks like Kimberly's been answering questions all along in the Q&A. So another person has asked here, where do we find the link for this video to watch? So again, it's basically on demand. So if you're interested in seeing the recording of this webinar at a later date, please talk to your school liaison. They can request it, and then we can share the recording of this webinar.
Hi, Marike. It's Kimberly. There was a question earlier about slide 2 for the iOS tech tools. Did you mind kind of covering that again?
The tech tools for iOS?
I believe it was like slide 2 or 3.
Way at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go back there, but I would just say that if you Apple's got a really great site, a really great support site. If you Google Apple support or you Google screen time family settings for Apple, it'll take you to their support page. And from there, you would be able to see the step-by-step instructions for this on their support page. It would help you because it would be specific to your operating system and your device. So things are slightly different if you're looking at the iPhone versus you've got an iPad. So check out their support page online. That's going to really support you in getting exactly that information. That's where we pull it from to put it on here. So feel free to go there. And I think Kimberly's pulled it up and put it in the chat. Thanks so much, Kimberly. And we do have another question just about QR codes. So yeah, QR codes. So did you know that if you fall for an email scam, it's called phishing. If you fall for a scam involving text messages, it's called smishing. And if you were to fall for a fraudulent QR code, it's called quishing. So yeah, QR codes can be quite dangerous, especially if they've been, they lead you somewhere where you would be entering in information, personal information. So they're quite dangerous. You always just want to make sure that if you are going to scan a QR code and click on that link, check out the link. It usually will show you the link. So if you're looking at it on your mobile phone, for example, you're in a restaurant, you hover over that QR code. I use my camera app. It shows me the link, and you can copy and paste that into our site safety checker before you click on it. And that would help you to identify whether that QR code is safe before you actually head off to that website. So I do encourage you to check out the link that pops up when you scan a QR code and double check it in a site safety checker or a URL checker like the one we shared previously. And I have one other question about students discovering a lot of new AI programs. There are a plethora out there, my goodness. And what advice would we give? So yes, there's a ton. I think one of the key things that you want to do is actually go and explore, find out the ones that they're trying out and using. Go and use them yourself. Go and see what they're all about. It's hard for us to understand the risks of a new app or a platform or a new ecosystem if we haven't gone in and checked it out ourselves. So make sure to go and explore these things, and then you'll quickly see where the pitfalls are and the dangers are. One thing we'd also recommend is telling our kids, don't just go and open and purchase and download any old AI app. Make sure you're checking reviews. Make sure you're using a legitimate, Play Store. Make sure you're looking for something that's reputable, because you don't want to download something that would install itself on your phone. And most people don't read the privacy policy attached to an app they're installing. Usually just scroll through the litany of information and you click OK. And you may inadvertently be giving that app a lot of access to information on your device as a result. So make sure you're using reputable programs. And as far as the challenges that they pose, I know for a school setting, there are many, and different schools are handling that very differently, depending on what the AI app is and how it's being used for school things. So hopefully that's a little bit of insight, but it is a challenge because the landscape is changing quickly, and we appreciate that it's a moving target. Oh yes, our website says Wikipedia is safe. I think that would mean that it's not going to be collecting information about you. So that's good. So we are just a little bit over time, about 4 minutes over time. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us this evening. Hopefully you've walked away with something that is helpful and useful. So thanks so much. Hope you guys stay safe online and keep those kiddos safe online. And have a wonderful evening.